Hi, this is Greg from Greg's Space Shed. Welcome back. In this lesson we're going to look at keys and key signatures. So I'm going to explain what a key is. I'm going to show you the different types of key signatures. I'm going to look at major and relative minor keys. I'm also going to give you practical examples of how we can use knowledge of keys to help us construct our bass lines and learn other songs. I work as a freelance musician doing sessions and different theatre shows and bands, so regularly I have to read music, I have to sight read on the spot. Now the first thing I'll look at is the key, because that will give me an idea of what chords are going to be in the piece of music, what sharps and flats. So you might not necessarily be playing to this level, but it's still really important to understand about keys, about key centres and the typical chords that will come up in that key. So I've written a PDF covering all the keys and their relative minors, and I've written down all the different key signatures. So you can download that by clicking the link in the description below, and I'll send that to you straight away. When you're downloading that, you may also want to have a look at my website. I've got more videos on there, I've got blogs, I've got a products page, and I've got more information about Greg's Space Shed. So go and check that out. So first of all, what is a key? Well, a key is a collection of notes and scales that make up that piece of music. So we have major and minor keys. Now a minor chord is said to be sadder or to have darker tones to it. So if I play you a G minor 7, so if I play you a G major 7 now, so a major chord is said to be happier or brighter. So minor, major. At the beginning of each piece of music you've got a key signature. Now this tells you how many sharps or flats are in that key, in that piece of music. So now on the screen I'm going to list all the major key signatures. So we've got C first, that's got no sharps or flats. And then we've got G with 1 sharp, and then D with 2 sharps, A with 3 sharps, E with 4 sharps, B with 5 sharps, F sharp with 6 sharps, and C sharp with 7 sharps. So have a look at those. And then we've got the flat keys. So we've got F with 1 flat, B flat with 2 flats, E flat with 3 flats, A flat with 4 flats, D flat with 5 flats, G flat with 6 flats, and C flat with 7 flats. So they're the major key signatures, and they're going to tell you what sharps or flats are in each piece of music. Sharps and flats are also called accidentals. Now you can have other sharps and flats other than the ones in the key signatures, but they're the ones that are most likely to happen in that piece. Now each major key has a relative minor, so its relative minor shares the same key signature. So if I show you those now on the screen, the minor key signatures, we've got A minor first, which is the relative of C major, so it doesn't have any sharps and flats. And then we have E minor, which has got 1 sharp, B minor, which is 2 sharps, F sharp, which is 3 sharps, C sharp, which is 4 sharps, G sharp, which is 5 sharps, D sharp, which is 6 sharps, and A sharp, which is 7 sharps. So now we'll look at the relative minor flat keys. So first of all we have D minor with 1 flat, G minor with 2 flats, C minor with 3 flats, F minor with 4 flats, B flat minor with 5 flats, E flat minor with 6 flats, and A flat minor with 7 flats. So remember, I've got all these written down on the PDF, so you can just download that by clicking in the description below. So how do we use this theory in a practical way? Well, once we know the key of a piece of music, we know the most common chords that are going to be used in that song. So the most common chords are chord 1, chord 4 and chord 5. So in the key of C, chord 1 is C, chord 4 is F, and chord 5 is G. Now you get that from the scale, so if in the key of C, if you're in C major, you can look at the major scale. If you want any more information about scales, then look, I've got a link there to my video. Have a look at that to refresh or to give you information about scales. So chord 1, chord 4 and 5 are the most obvious chords to be used. And also we're going to have chord 2 and chord 6. So chord 2 in the key of C major is D minor, and chord 6 is A minor. So I'll list on the screen now what all the chords are in C major. So we have C, D minor, E minor, F, G, A minor, B diminished. There's actually a formula so you can work this out on each key. So the chords are major, minor, minor, major, major, minor, diminished. So what I'm going to do now is list the common major progressions, and I'm going to play those progressions on the keyboard for you so you can hear them. Okay, now we'll move on to minor keys. So the relative minor to C major is A minor, as we found out before in the lesson. So we'll look at A minor. So the common chords again in a minor key are 1, 4 and 5. So we've got A minor, which is called 1, D minor, which is called 4, and E minor, which is called 5. So all the chords to A minor are A minor, B diminished, C, D minor, E minor, F and G. So the formula again for minor scales for the chords are minor, diminished, major, minor, minor, major, major. So if we now compare all the chords in the key of C major with all the chords in the key of A minor, which is its relative minor, you might notice that they're the same chords. So they just start in a different place. So that's why. So the relative and minors and majors share the same chords. So now I'm going to use some common minor progressions. I'll play them on the keyboard again so you can hear them. Have a listen and I'll write up what the progressions are on the screen. So we've looked at key signatures, major and minor, we've looked at relative minors, and we've also looked at some common progressions in major and minor keys. So now, if we look at summertime, now I'm going to put the progression now up on the screen. I've taken away all the 7 chords just to simplify it a bit for you. And if we look through, the only unusual chord in here I would say is an E, and it's not a minor chord. So in the key of A minor, there's normally E minor. So that chord, that E major chord, has been borrowed from A major. So it's called a secondary dominant, but you don't have to worry about that too much. So if we look at the rest of the progression, we can see A minor, F to G, C minor, F, B diminished, E. So apart from the E major, you'll notice that all the other chords are from the key of A minor. So it's really useful on a piece of music to work out what the key is, and then you know what the most likely chords are going to be. Now if we're playing bass lines over these major and minor chords, it's good to have a framework. I like to think about chord tonality. We can use the arpeggio to work that out. So if you don't know about arpeggios or you need to refresh, then again there's a link here to one of my other videos. Check that out first. So if we're playing bass lines over these major and minor chords, we obviously have to approach each major and minor chord differently. So if you don't know about arpeggios or you need to be refreshed, then there's a link here to one of my other videos. Have a look at that and then come back to this point. So to outline the chord or the chord tonality, it's good to use an arpeggio to demonstrate. So for A minor, the difference between A minor and A major is the third. So the minor third is there, which is the C. Now the major third is there as a C sharp. So an A minor arpeggio and an A major arpeggio. So that's the difference, that's the third. So that's a major third, a minor third, which you can also play there. So that's a step down or a semitone down from a major third. So major, minor. So as a bass player, your distinguishing note between the minor and major chord is the third. So say you were playing a minor walking line, or a major walking line. So it's handy to think about hand position as well, where your fingers are. To play minor, you're often going to be playing the third with your full finger around there. So you'd start on your first finger for A. And if you're playing a major, you would often be playing it with your first finger, the third. And it's the same way that you'd start a major scale or a minor scale. Okay, so think about hand position. So to really develop your understanding of keys and key signatures, I suggest you look at lots of different chord sequences. Try to look at the piece of music. If it's written, look at what the key signature is, work that out. If it isn't, try and look for the common chords. Try and look for chord 1, 4 and 5 and work out whether it's major or minor. You can practice different scales and arpeggios and look at the key signatures. So again, on the PDF I've got all the key signatures written out. You can get the PDF from the description below, just click the link. Look at those key signatures and play the scales and arpeggios and note where the sharps and the flats are. So you could say pick a key each week. So you could find a piece of music in a certain key, say G major, and then you can practice the arpeggios, practice the scales and really get to grips with that key, and then next week move on to another key. Now I cover more about keys and key signatures in my bass beginner guide, which I've nearly finished. If you look on my website gregsbassshed.com and look on the products page, there's more information there and you can express an interest in my ebook. Please like, comment and share this video, and that really helps me spread the word about Greg's Bass Shed. Obviously check me out on Instagram and Facebook. I hope you enjoyed the lesson and I'll see you next week.